Hey, I'm Brian with Waypoint Defensive, and today we're going to go over how to clean a semi-automatic firearm, specifically a Glock 19. Now, a lot of people will go overboard with this, and really it's a simple process to field strip and break down a Glock. You don't need any special tools, and really you don't need a whole lot of equipment to actually clean your firearm. Now, some people will go overboard and buy very large kits with tons of brushes and lots of extra accessories. And while that's nice to have, the typical firearm person actually won't use about 95 to 98% of all the items in that. So real quick, let's show you some cool stuff that you can use to clean your firearm. So first off, a lot of your kits are going to have plastic or brass brushes. Now, these are great to have and they do serve a purpose. They're slightly antiquated sometimes for what we use them for. We recommend at Waypoint Defensive a bore snake. You can get this through stores online, local ranges, or you can click on our affiliate link as well. But a bore snake, super simple to use, washable, comes in specific calibers. So if you're like most people and you only have a couple of firearms, or if you have firearms that all share the same caliber, you only need one of these. And this can save a lot of bulk from having the large kits with the dozens of brushes that we probably won't use. Also, a good piece of kit to have is a brush. This is just a plastic bristle brush. Toothbrushes are completely fine, especially if you have one that you're about to throw away. This gets away a lot of the excess carbon deposits as they build up on firearms. These are very cheap to get, and you can also click on our links below and you can find this as well. I personally like to find old dental picks like this. You can get these at Walmart, any place online as well. But these are great for really breaking through the hard, built-up carbon layers that are in small nooks and crannies on places such as the barrel locking lugs. And we'll go over that later. But this is also really nice to have. When it comes to cleaners or solvents, there's lots of options, all right? The old standby is hops. Hops is great. You can get these pretty much everywhere. And you can use breakthrough. Personally, I like this one. It comes in a large jug. It's easier to spray, so you can really coat a lot of the parts rapidly, let it sit on the side for a while, and it's no worries. There are dozens and dozens of solvents, oils, and combination solvent oils. You can't really go wrong with any of them. It's really depending on what your personal preference is and what's readily available at your local store. If it was me, as my own personal preference right here, is that we would get our solvents and our oils through a company called Breakthrough. I personally like these because they don't have a strong chemical smell. So it doesn't irritate your sinuses. Other people won't complain when you start cleaning your firearms, and then they notice the smell as well. As opposed to like hops. Hops is a little bit more chemically smell. And even though we're wearing gloves today, and actually that's recommended for all your firearms cleaning, this isn't quite as bad on your hands if you weren't wearing gloves for some odd reason. So these are your major components, and all honesty, you have that, but really we just need this. Your only other accessory that I would truly recommend for everyone is the use of paper towels. You don't need dark towels like this. Well, this is nice to have, and sometimes this will cover up a lot of the stains or carbon buildup when you're cleaning your pistol. This can be difficult if you do a full disassembly on a firearm and small little pins or whatever get laid up against this, and you won't be able to see them, and then they'll fall on the floor, and then you've got to chase them down. So I recommend fully white paper towels. So in this case, let's lay one right here. When we clean our firearms, it's very important that we understand and still adhere to the 4 firearm safety rules. In this case, I have a Glock 19 on the table. We don't know the condition of this weapon, so it's important that we treat it exactly like it's a loaded firearm. Keeping the muzzle in a safe direction, one that I don't mind destroying if this round actually went off. We're going to hold our pistol like such. We're going to press the magazine release. Remove the magazine. Note that there is no ammunition in it. We're going to take this magazine and place it clear off from our work area so it doesn't get confused with anything else. We're going to rack the slide back. We're going to physically inspect the firearm and in the chamber. So now that the trigger is in rearward position and we know there's not a round in this firearm, we can remove the slide from the frame. To do such, we apply gentle pressure to the rear of the slide, as so. This takes the slide slightly out of battery. When we do this, we also take our fingers, we manipulate the slide takedown lever, which allows the slide to move forward and disassemble itself from the frame. Using the slide first, there's three main components of this. First is your recoil spring. Super simple to remove. All we have to do is put pressure here, and the spring is removed. Lay this down on the napkin. Then the barrel simply falls away from the slide. Once you've done this, you've done a field disassembly or a field stripping of the upper components of the Glock. A field strip is the minimal amount of components that you have to disassemble from a firearm to do a quick clean to get the firearm back in service. So with the components laid out like this is your basic field strip of a Glock. Notice that we don't have to take apart any of the smaller components inside the slide. Also within your frame, where you have several different mechanisms, you don't have to take those apart now. If you were doing a full strip, then yes, there's way more parts to disassemble, and you should reference back to your manual that comes with the firearm to make sure that we're all doing it right. So now that we have the Glock field stripped and on this side of the table, all right, lay down another piece of paper towel. That way we can actually do the cleaning here, but we have all of our parts here. Don't make the rookie mistake of starting to place parts, pins, barrels all over your table, because next thing you know, one will roll off and we'll have to find it later. Keep everything nice and neat. That way you also know exactly what parts have been cleaned and what has not been cleaned. So, start off simple. This is the recoil spring from a Glock. This doesn't require a lot of cleaning. In fact, all we're going to do is take our solvent, spritz it, and let it sit. Super simple, right? When we look at our barrel, all right, it is important to note portions of the barrel that we will give a lot of detail to. So with this barrel right here, we're going to douse this in solvent as well, but we're going to pay attention to the locking lugs, where the recoil spring sits, the breech face, and the feed ramp. Once again, super simple. Douse this in solvent and take the solvent and spray it down the barrel, just a few squirts. And let it sit to the side. So then when we clean the slide, there's not a whole lot we have to do right here, but we want to make sure that the rails are cleaned. We also want to make sure that you will get a lot of carbon buildup on this portion of the slide and the actual face here. You'll notice that your firing pin is up in this position. To make that go down, simply press the plunger here, and the firing pin will go back into the hole. Be very careful spraying solvent in this area. We don't want solvent and oil to go into this striker hole and bind up the mechanics inside here. If the oil and the solvent mix with the carbon here and you don't disassemble this portion, it can cause the striker or the firing pin to slow down, and you'll get light primer strikes. You don't want to do that. So with this section here, all we have to do, use our brush, take some solvent, and use the brush to clean portions of it. On any of these parts, after you use the brush and the solvent and you notice that there's something still caked on, you can use a pick, a metal one, or a plastic one to slowly remove the excess. Once the slide has been cleaned, take a simple paper towel, remove the excess solvent and carbon deposits that you've cleaned with. And lay the clean portion back over to the other side of the table. The recoil spring does not require disassembly. For this, we're simply going to wipe it back down and ensure that the large portions of crud or carbon buildup have been removed. The barrel will require just a little bit more work. So as we're going back through, we're going to just gently look back over. This is the recessed lugs where the recoil spring sits. These are the locking lugs for the barrel. We're going to simply make sure that there is no carbon buildup there. The breech face. If this was a well-used Glock, you would see a lot of stuff come off of that. And of course, the feed ramp. Take your cloth, wipe it down. Now to clean the inside of the barrel, we're going to use our bore snake. Bore snake's super simple to use, right? Take the weighted end. We're going to clean from breech, which is this portion, to muzzle, which is this portion. Feed this in. And we'll notice, you have a plastic guide here, that the bore snake is a combination of cloth to absorb and move stuff, small miniature wire brushes, and then a cleaning portion off the rear. So basically this does exactly the same thing as your old school wire brushes, except in a way more efficient manner.
What you can do if your gun's really dirty is you can spray both this point and this point. You can see there's a little bit of extra fabric. So you spray those points with solvent or cleaner, lubrication, and then you pull it through. It's just to get extra lubrication in the barrel. Mm-hmm. So just depending on how many rounds you fired. Now, Brian, question for you. Mm-hmm. How many rounds do you recommend firing before you clean your gun?
Usually I wouldn't clean my Glock unless I've shot at least 1,000 rounds through it. That's my personal preference, having gone through several classes in which the Glock has fired and discharged about 1,500 rounds in a weekend. It doesn't hurt to do like a field strip real quick in between class days, but I won't do a detailed clean till at least 1,000, 1,500 rounds, as opposed to many other people who will meticulously clean their firearms every 200 rounds or even 50 rounds at a range visit. The problem with this, though, is that increased cleaning or super aggressive cleaning can actually cause more damage to your firearm than intermittent cleaning after 1,000 rounds. Now that we've cleaned all these pieces, it's time to lubricate them and then reassemble. So with your captured spring, right, all this requires is really just a drop of oil to gently glide over it, like so. Done. For the barrel itself, one drop, one drop, one drop, and smear across the barrel. For the slide, we'll place one drop here, and we'll place one drop here. That's right along the rails where it attaches to the frame. You don't need a lot of lubrication here. Glocks typically run drier than most other firearms. One drop here and one drop here is sufficient. It's plenty. Reassemble. And lay this off to the side. The frame itself only requires one specific point of lubrication. That is right here. Just one drop. That's all it takes. All right, so now that we have the two major components, let's put the slide back on the frame. Sometimes this can get a little complicated and it's easy to mess up. Before we do it, make sure that your recoil spring is firmly seated as such. If, for some odd reason, it pops out or it's in a different position, it can make reassembly more difficult. You'll notice there's guide channels here. These will align with this metal piece and that metal piece. That's all it is to it.